Hi guys, welcome to Zibakeriz, where I show you how to create beautiful decorated cakes and cupcakes. So let's get started. Over here I have a bowl of buttercream and I'm going to be adding in some sky blue gel-based food coloring by Chef Master. So you want to start off by adding a little bit of that color and then kind of slowly building the color. So just going to give that a nice mix. This process of adding the color and mixing the buttercream also allows you to get rid of any of those air bubbles and give you that smooth texture for your buttercream as well. So a lot of the times I do get asked a lot, how's your buttercream so smooth? This process of adding color and mixing is what allows you to get that smooth consistency for your buttercream. So now I'm just going to add a little bit of this white gel food coloring by Chef Master as well, just because the color that I'm looking for is a little bit more brighter of a blue. So I'm just going to add a little bit of white first, and then I'm going to build the blue after, just because there is a little bit of that yellow buttercream hue that I didn't want, so I offset that with some white gel based food coloring. So I did add a generous amount of that buttercream, of that gel based food coloring, and then give everything a nice mix. So it is important to understand color mixing, just because you want to gradually build your color. So you can see that I'm going back and adding in that blue. You don't want to add in too much, so I did put a little bit to the side of the bowl just so that I can gradually build my color. If you add too much, it is kind of harder to go backwards, so I would suggest adding a little bit, and then if you see that it's not the color that you're going for and you can add more, just go ahead and add the remaining gel food coloring. So you can see that I end up using all of that blue that I added to the side of my bowl, just because I felt like the buttercream was too light. So you just want to give the bowl a nice mix, and then kind of scrape the buttercream against the side of the bowls, and that's what's going to give you that silky smooth buttercream texture that you're looking for. So at this point I am pretty happy with the color that I've achieved. It's a nice soft baby blue color. So now over here I have some of these chocolate cupcakes that I've baked, and you want to bake them a little bit lower than the cupcake liner, just so that I can fill the top with some of that buttercream. So using this tapered spatula, I'm just going to use that to fill in my buttercream on top of the cupcakes. So you just want to kind of push the buttercream down and use the side of the cupcake liner to kind of help you get that nice smooth top. I wouldn't suggest moving back and forth. You kind of want to use that pushing down method and then glide against the top of your cupcake liner, using the edge of the cupcake liner as a guide to help you get that nice smooth surface on top of your cupcake. And it's okay if some of the buttercream gets on the side of your cupcake liner. You can just go back and clean up the sides so you have a nice clean cupcake liner as well. So now I'm just going to repeat this same process on all of the remaining cupcakes, following that same method of using our tapered spatula and filling in our cupcakes. Again, you want to use that push down method. You do not want to go back and forth, just because that could cause your cupcake crumbs to actually get on the top of your buttercream. So again, following that same method, and then you just want to, using your tapered spatula, smooth out the surface using the sides of your cupcake liner to help you get that nice smooth surface to work with, and then cleaning up the sides with some paper towel. So at this point I have nice smooth surface for all of my cupcakes, so I'm going to use the remaining buttercream and place that into separate bowls for my leaves. So over here I've placed the buttercream in 2 bowls, as well as divided the remaining buttercream in 3 separate bowls for the remaining colors. So the colors that I'm using to create the leaves are this leaf green, this buckeye brown, and lemon yellow by Chef Master, and they are all gel-based food coloring. So I'm adding a little bit of the leaf green to one of the bowls. I am going to be creating 2 variations of green, so they're both going to be green, just 2 different versions or different types of greens to create the leaves. So for the first one, you can see I've added in a little bit of that green gel food coloring, and then I added a little bit to the side just because I felt like it was too much. But as I was mixing, I noticed that it was very light of a color, so it's okay if I added in the remaining green. So I still find that a little bit too light, so I'm going to be adding in some of that buckeye brown. So you might be wondering why I added in this brown into the leaf. just because it's going to add more of a realistic color to the leaf. When you are outside and if you examine leaves a little bit more closer, there's a lot of different colors in just a leaf. There's brown, there's yellow, there's green, there's so much, and that's what creates the depth and the realistic look to a leaf. So that's why I've added in a little bit of that brown gel food coloring. I still feel like it could use a little bit more of that brown and a little bit more of that lemon yellow just to create a nice realistic color to that leaf. So you just want to give everything a nice mix, and you're going to gradually build your color and kind of see if you're happy with the shade of green you're getting. So after mixing this, you can see that it is a little bit more on the browner kind of shade. So I'm going to add a little bit more of the leaf green gel food coloring to this just to make it a little bit more brighter as well. So I am happy with the undertone of this green, but I just want it to be a little bit more green rather than brown. But you can see that, you know, color mixing is a gradual process. You won't get your color right away. It's something that you're going to gradually kind of build, and as you're mixing the color, you're going to see if you like it or not. So you can see that I'm happy with the shade that I've achieved, but for the next green, I'm using a little bit of that leaf green. And I didn't mention this, but you can see that the base that I've actually used is also the base from the color of my cupcake surface. So you can see that you can just use your previous buttercream. If it's lighter, you can use that to kind of build on your colors as well. So you can see I've added in that gel-based food coloring green, and it's a nice bright green, but I want it to be a little bit more darker and deeper in color. So I went back, I've added in a little bit more of that leaf green, lemon yellow, as well as the brown shade. But you can see that because of the different amounts of colors that I am using, you can see that you don't end up with the same color. Even though I'm using the same 3 gel food colorings, you can see the results for the 2 leaves are going to be completely different. So you can see one is nice and vibrant and one is very like dull and green. But you can see I'm going back and adding in a little bit more of the brown, but not too much, just enough to kind of make it look a little bit more realistic, but not too bright. And you can see I end up with 2 very beautiful types of green. The one on the right is brighter, and then one on the left is a little bit more deeper and darker in color. So I'm going to be using both of these to create the leaves on my cupcakes. So now I'm going to show you how to create the colors for my flowers. So I have 3 bowls filled with buttercream, as well as 2 separate bowls that I'm going to be using as well. So I'm going to use some white gel-based food coloring, some deep pink, fuchsia, and some purple gel-based food coloring. I will be using a little bit more as well, like yellow, lemon yellow, and sky blue a little later on. So in the first bowl, I'm just going to add some white gel food coloring, and one of the colors that I'm just going to be using is white. So you just want to offset that yellow tone with some of that white gel food coloring to get a nice white, bright white. So I am going to take a little bit of that white buttercream out, and I'm just going to place that in a separate bowl because I'm going to be using that to kind of create a yellow color as well. So to this white, I'm just going to be adding in a little bit of lemon yellow gel-based food coloring, and you just want to give that a nice mix. So you can see that you get this very nice pastel yellow, and that's what I'm going to be using as the center for some of my flowers. So I didn't need too much, just a little bit. Now I'm going to start working on the next color, which is going to be a pink color. So I'm going to be adding in a little bit of that deep pink gel food coloring, and then give everything a nice mix. And again, you can see that I am starting off with a smaller amount, and then I'm gradually going to build the color by adding in a little bit more of the fuchsia gel food coloring, just because I feel like this is, again, it's very light. So I'm just going to go back and add in some fuchsia. So what I'm trying to show you from keeping this entire color mixing part in this video is to allow you to understand that you won't achieve your color right away. It's a matter of gradually building your color and kind of seeing how you feel. Like, do you like the color? Do you want it to be brighter? Do you want it to be darker? So if I wanted it to be more pink, you can see I've taken a little bit of this pink color out now, and I want to add a little bit of fuchsia to make this a little bit more darker. So you can see that I'm using the base color, which is still going to be pink, but I can build on this as well and kind of add in some of that fuchsia, and this way I'm going to have a variation of another pink coming from the original light pink, and this will actually work and complement one another just because I'm using the base color as well. So you can see that I'm just going to add a little bit of that fuchsia gel food coloring, and you can see that I end up with a completely different color while still using the base color from that light pink. So now that I'm happy with this nice light purplish pink color, now I'm going to use the last bowl of buttercream, and I'm going to add in a little bit of purple gel food coloring and give that a mix as well. Again, following that same technique, building on your color, starting with a little bit, adding in more. And you can see that it does actually give you a nice deeper purple shade now. And I am pretty happy with this. And again, I'm going to be using a little bit of this purple and taking it out and placing that in a separate bowl as well, just like I did with the light pink. So you're just going to take a little bit out, and then you want to place that in a separate bowl as well. And then to this, I'm going to be adding in a little bit of blue gel food coloring. So you might be wondering, what is that going to do? It's going to create a completely different version of this purple as well. So it's going to be a little bit more brighter, and it's going to, so I've added in see too much. So you just want to place a little bit to the side of the bowl. And if you feel like you're going to need it, you can slowly just bring it back in. So you can see that it has that same undertone of that purple, but it has a little bit more of this warmer shade. So the base color is still there, but you can see that both the purples are going to complement one another just because we're building on the base color. So now that I have all of the colors, I'm just going to add these into our piping bags. So now that I've placed all of my buttercream into my piping bags, two of the piping bags I've decided to add two tones to them. So the light pink with the dark pink, and then the light purple with the dark purple. So when you are adding the buttercream, you just want to, into the piping bag, you just want to flatten the piping bag, and on one side add the darker shade, and then on the other side add in the lighter shade. Same way with the other bag, I did the same thing. So you just want to use the tapered spatula and help you kind of push that against the side of your piping bag. So I will leave a link to a video where I have shown that before. And now I'm just going to show you all of the piping tips I'm using. So over here I have the Wilton tip number 2, which is a round tip. And I use another round tip, then the Wilton tip number 81, which is kind of this U-shaped tip, then a tip number 67, a leaf tip, as well as the Wilton tip number 352, which is also a leaf tip, and then a Wilton tip number 102, which is a petal tip. So I'm going to be using these piping tips to create all of the different flowers on top of my cupcakes. So you also want to make sure that you add a coupler on top of all of your piping bags. This way you can switch out on the different types of piping tips you're using. So I'm going to start off by taking off the coupler for the green shade. And then I'm going to place the Wilton tip number 2, which is the round tip, on top of the coupler. And then using that second piece, you just want to secure that piping tip in place. So now I'm going to create the stems on all of the cupcakes for these mini floral bouquets. So when you are creating the stems, you want to practice pressure and control. So with one hand, you're going to be applying the pressure, and with the other hand, you're going to place it under your piping bag, and that's what's going to give you more of that control. So when you are kind of creating these stems, you want to kind of flow in whichever direction you feel like going, and it's okay if the stem kind of breaks off at some point. You can just go back and fill in the gap. And you just want to kind of have fun with the process, kind of make the stems go in different directions, just like any floral bouquet would. This is what's going to give each cupcake a unique, different floral bouquet design, because that's going to be our guide to adding the different types of flowers in that direction as well. So just kind of have fun with the process and play around with the different variations and sizes of these stems on each of your cupcakes. So you can see I'm going in one direction on one of them. I'm adding a smaller branch. Then I'll go ahead and, add a random one on the side, or kind of having 3 together which I didn't do on all the other cupcakes. So you just want to have fun with the process and play around with the different types of stems. So now taking the Wilton tip number 102, I'm going to be creating small little rose buds on each of my cupcakes. And for this I decided to use the two-toned pink buttercream. So you want to make sure that the thin side of your piping tip is facing upwards and the thicker is towards the bottom, and towards the top I have the darker shade and towards the bottom I have the lighter shade of buttercream. And you just want to start off by creating a small little bud and then creating small little petals overlapping each other to create a beautiful rose petal or a little flower. And what's amazing about adding the coupler is that you can actually switch around the colors of your roses as well. So right now I have, the darker side towards the edge and then the lighter towards the bottom, but then later on you can switch it around. So that's one thing that's very important of adding a coupler. So again, I'm just going to show you close up. I'm just adding a little small bud, and then I'm going to go around kind of in a curved motion and then create little petals around that middle bud. That's what's going to create a beautiful rose. So you can see that the lighter part of the petal is towards the top and then the darker shade is towards the bottom. So if I want to switch it around, you want to just loosen up that little top piece and then turn your piping tip and then tighten your little second piece so that now you've switched it around. So now the darker part of the piping tip, which is the thin part, is facing upwards and then the lighter part is facing towards the bottom. So you can see before the darker part was towards the bottom and the lighter was towards the top. Now the lighter is towards the bottom and then the darker is towards the top. So it's going to give a different look to our flower, kind of adding variation to these little mini floral bouquets. So again, add the bud and then kind of create this round motion, and that's going to create the second rose petal. So you just want to add some pressure, and then that's basically going to be these small little buds in our floral bouquets. And if you want to make some of them bigger, then you add some petals on the side in between the bud as well. So you can make some of them larger by adding more and more petals around it. So now taking the Wilton tip number 81, which is basically this U-shaped piping tip. So you just want to hold this piping tip nice and straight and then lift up. And then you're going to turn your piping tip and then lift up. And you're going to do this in a form that kind of creates a beautiful flower. So you just want to make sure you add pressure and then pull up. Add pressure and then pull up. And then you want to keep turning and kind of form the petals from the center and then kind of work your way towards the outside. Some of them are going to be larger flowers, some of them are going to be smaller. So you can see you just want to make sure you add the pressure and then you want to pull up and then you want to build around those petals while you keep turning your cupcake. So it's not that difficult. You just want to make sure that you apply enough pressure and then you pull up to create those petals, and then you want to build around those petals. And the larger and more petals you add, the larger your flower is going to be. Some of them are obviously going to be larger than others. Just make sure to apply pressure and then lift up. So this flower is definitely not difficult. It's super easy. You just want to kind of pull up, and because I've used the two tones in this as well, it gives a more realistic look to your floral bouquet as well. So you can also switch around the colors just like I showed you earlier, but for this one I kept it all the same just because both of the colors and the two tones were showing very nicely and I wanted to keep it that way. So again, you just want to start from the center and gradually work your way towards the outside, following that same motion of applying pressure and then lifting up while you keep turning your cupcake. So you can see that the more petals you're going to add, the larger your flower is going to be. So now taking the Wilton tip number 102 with the white buttercream, I'm going to be creating these small little, I guess you can say these small little daisy flowers. So you just want to apply pressure and then lift up. So I'm not doing anything, I'm just allowing the tip to kind of create the petals for me. So you just want to apply pressure and then kind of pull down, and that's what's going to create these small little daisy flowers. So I'm just going to do that on a couple of my cupcakes. So there's not too much of a technique to this. You just want to apply pressure and then pull down. And then taking the Wilton tip number 2 with that yellow buttercream, I'm just going to fill the center with a small little dot for those little daisy flowers. So I'm going to add a few more of these white flowers just because I really liked how they look like. So again, just apply pressure and then kind of pull down to bring that buttercream towards the center. And then you want to keep turning your cupcake while you are creating those petals. And then you want to go back and fill the center with a little bit of that yellow. Now taking the Wilton tip number 67, I'm just going to create a few of those leaves on some of the stems. I am going to be adding a variation of different leaves, but you can see I'm just applying pressure and then pulling upwards. And that's just going to create a few small little leaves on all of these stems. So now taking the brighter green shade, I've added a Wilton tip number 2 to that. I'm going to be creating a different variation of leaves. I've showed you how to create these specific type of leaves in a different video, so I'll leave the eye icon above to that video so you can see how I created those leaves. But it's super simple. You just add pressure and then you kind of lift up, and then you do that on the other side. So apply pressure and then lift up, and then apply pressure and lift up. So now taking the Wilton tip number 102, I've added that to the darker green shade, and for that one it's kind of similar to the pressure of the how I showed you how to make those daisy leaves. You just want to apply pressure and then kind of lift upwards. So just apply pressure and then lift, and you're going to create these small beautiful realistic leaves. So you just want to apply pressure and then lift up. So you just want to do that in different areas of these floral bouquets. The more leaves you add, the more realistic it looks. Now taking the Wilton tip number 2, I've added that to the two-tone pink buttercream, and I'm just creating these small little flowers by adding more dots on the bottom, and then as I get to the edge I kind of narrow it down. And I'm going to do the same thing with a Wilton tip number 2 with the two-tone purple shade as well. So same concept, you want to create these small little dots, and you want to go from larger to kind of these smaller dots. And as you get to the very edge, you kind of have like only 1 or 2 dots. So this is basically our kind of like these filler flowers for our floral bouquets. They're going to add color and more volume to our floral bouquets. And then lastly, taking the Wilton tip number 2, I placed that on the white buttercream as well. And then following that same concept, you want to have larger dots. And then as you get towards the edge, you kind of want to narrow it down to a thin point. So these are very nice filler flowers, making these small little floral bouquets look nice and full. So you just want to do this in different areas of your bouquets. So wherever you feel like you want to add a nice second or fill in any gaps, you can just go ahead and add in these little mini filler flowers. So now taking the Wilton tip number 102 that's on the two-tone pink buttercream, I'm just going to go back and add a few more of those rose petals just to make the floral bouquets look a little bit more full as well. So you just want to follow that same concept of applying pressure and creating petals after the center bud is piped. So apply pressure and then kind of overlap and create a petal on top, and then create another petal over that. That's what's going to give more of those petaled looks on your flowers. Add a little bit of these smaller buds, and then I also went back and created a few more petals on some of the roses just because I wanted some of the roses to look a little bit more blossomed. So then you just want to add a few more petals or buds wherever you feel like you want to fill in the gaps and kind of make your bouquets look a little bit more full. So at this point, I'm happy with all of these mini floral cupcake bouquets, each one looking very different and unique, and I'm really happy with the way these turned out. I hope you guys found this video tutorial helpful, and if you did, please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell notification so you guys get notified every time I upload a new video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys in my next video.